Nebraska set out to compile a top 10 greatest blacks for Black History Month, but the state's talent pool proved too shallow, too pitiful to muster even a measly 10. A top 5 was scribbled together, only to expose a lineup so dull and unremarkable it barely registered. Alternative lists took shape, and different names popped up, but through it all, one name stood out, standing above and looming larger than life, hogging the top spot on almost every roster. That black didn't just edge out the competition. He ascended past it, claiming the title of Nebraska's greatest black not through merit or virtue, but because he's the loudest, proudest embodiment of this state's blackness. No top 10, no top 5, just one undeniable king, unanimously selected after careful consideration as Black History Month's Nebraska's greatest black, Mickey Joseph. Joseph clinched this honor for 3 ironclad reasons. He's black, non-negotiable, the baseline credential. He's lived in Nebraska and oozes the unpolished traits you'd expect from a black Nebraskan: brash, unapologetic, and mostly clueless. And most damningly, he mirrors the qualities Nebraskans secretly cherish: stupidity, phoniness, and a weirdo streak that could curdle milk. He's not just a black icon. He's the ultimate Nebraska loser, a smug punk who fits the state's parade of know-it-all nobodies like a glove stitched from cheap lies and cheaper dreams. Mickey Joseph is the greatest because he's more Nebraskan than the average Nebraskan, a fact he'd never admit to but can't escape. Joseph's Nebraska tale kicked off in 1988 as a Cornhusker quarterback under Tom Osborne's hallowed reign. Sticking around until 1991, he was a scholarship-snatching ingrate from day one, a textbook black athlete who grabbed a free ride and sneered at the privilege. Picture him: a little smug loser, an ungrateful punk strutting around Lincoln like he owned it, dripping with fake gangsta vibes while playing the tough guy. He was a wannabe thug, a jerky dweeb too arrogant to see he'd be nothing without football's handouts. Stupid, criminal-minded, and racist to his rotten core, hating the white fans who clapped for his middling runs. Back then, he was already laying the groundwork to be Black History Month's Nebraska's greatest black, a snotty little nobody who thought he was somebody, a blueprint for the jerk he'd become. Fast forward to 2022, and Joseph slid it back to Lincoln, hired on March 1st as associate head coach and wide receivers coach under Scott Frost, a washed-up drunk who'd run the program into the dirt. Frost got the axe September 11th after a 1-2 flop, and athletic director Trev Alberts, a perverted subversive with a fetish for trolling Nebraska's Red State faithful, handed Joseph the interim head coach gig. It was a DI hire so shameless it stank, a black coach thrust into the spotlight not for skill, but to let the liberal loons in the administration crow about diversity. Joseph's debut came September 17th against number 6 Oklahoma, a 49-14 spanking that set the tone for his 9-game disaster, a 3-6 record, dragging the season to a 4-8 whimper. He lucked into a 24-17 upset over Iowa and nearly nicked Illinois. But don't be fooled. He was a coaching fraud, a talentless hack who didn't know a playbook from a bar napkin. As Nebraska's first black head coach, he held the state's most sacred job, bigger than the governor's, a throne of prestige, and he turned it into a laughingstock, proving he got every gig because he's black, not because he's good. Every black in Nebraska united behind Joseph, unanimously declaring him their next head coach, a savior to transform Nebraska football into a ghetto garbage heap. They dreamed of him kicking whites out, pocketing the profits, and partying at the expense of the state's pale majority. A black power takeover from cheats through cleats. Blacks from all across the state and beyond Nebraska's borders chanted his name, pushing him as the permanent pick because he's one of them. The fake news media piled on: Lincoln Journal-Star, Omaha World Herald, ESPN, all the TV and radio hacks, gushing over him 24/7, plastering his face everywhere to prove they weren't racist. These woke clowns and leftist loons endorsed him nonstop, terrified of looking bigoted, desperate to flaunt their love for a black coach no matter how lousy he was. Nebraska fans joined the circus, publicly cheering Joseph to dodge the racist tag, though plenty muttered their disgust over beers in private. Most Nebraskans, at least outwardly, picked him, a majority too wimpy to admit they only back him because he's black, not because he could win. Joseph didn't just want a permanent gig. He lusted after to implement the blackness, a communist-trained, white-hating plot to remake the Cornhuskers in his anti-white image. He's a rabid racist, a black power advocate who despises Nebraska's white backbone, scheming to steal its soul while flashing a fake grin at its fans. He was the university's golden boy, unanimously endorsed by every black in the state and primed to be the next head coach because they wanted a black face in that top job. If he just won 1 or 2 more games, say, flip Purdue or Minnesota, he might have clinched it, and Alberts, the DI-pushing creep, would have caved. But his 3-6 stench was too foul. His coaching so abysmal the athletic director couldn't justify it. On November 27th, 2022, Nebraska tapped Matt Rule instead, shattering Joseph's dream of turning Lincoln into his personal territory. He'd held the state's most important post as interim coach, a perch that defines greatness in Nebraska, and he fumbled it. Not because of bias, but because he's a terrible coach who never earned a thing. Three days later, on November 30th, 2022, Joseph's mask ripped clean off. After learning he'd lost a job, he stormed home and unleashed a savage beating on his wife. Priscilla, a tantrum so violent landed him in cuffs. Lincoln police, under Chief Teresa Ewens, spelled it out in the affidavit. He shoved her onto a couch, strangled her, cutting off her air, yanked her hair, and smashed her face, leaving her left eye swollen and red. Her brother watched him choke her, hair strands littering her clothes. A brutal scene fueled by rage over alleged infidelity. Charged with strangulation and third-degree domestic assault, both felonies under Nebraska law. He was axed from the team in December 2022. But here's where his Nebraska greatness peaks. He walked free. By April 5th, 2023, the case collapsed. Priscilla, intimidated, threatened, and reportedly paid off by her thug husband, bolted to Arizona and refused to testify. Prosecutors begged, but she emailed him in February 2023, killing the case. With bruises, a witness, and her initial statement, it was open and shut. Yet the Lincoln justice system, a lapdog to the university football racket, swept it under the rug. Charges dropped without prejudice, legally allowing refiling, though none has. No conviction. His Nebraska ties and insider scams set him loose, a hallmark of Cornhusker greatness. Joseph's a walking Nebraska stereotype. Stupid? Check. He's a brain-dead fraud who faked his way through coaching, a dim bulb handed jobs for his race. Not his wits, proving it with every boneheaded call. Phony? He's the phoniest. A fake tough guy from his punk college days, a smarmy liar who played gangsta while secretly a wimp, a fraud who conned his way into the interim gig and flailed. Weird? You bet. A creep into sick, twisted stuff. A freaky weirdo whose oddball stench screams Nebraska. This state loves its idiots, its posers, its freaks. Joseph's a trifecta, a know-it-all loser with a bad attitude who thinks he's special, just like every other Cornhusker clown. He's Black History Month's Nebraska's greatest black, because he's the dumbest, fakest, weirdest black this state's ever put on a pedestal, a perfect fit for its senselessness. Now, Joseph's back in the saddle, hired December 2024 as head coach at Grambling State, a black college where his kind stick together, rewarding their own no matter how rancid their rap sheet. He's a thief who nearly snatched Nebraska's top job, a jerk who cheated through life, a lowlife who beat his wife and slithered free. He stood before white fans, spitting lies. I love Nebraska, best fans anywhere, while hating their guts, a dirty rat plotting to ruin their state. He's a racist who hates whites with passive-aggressive sneer, using them to climb while scheming to steal it all, a low-down punk who thinks he's slick. Mickey Joseph is Black History Month's Nebraska's greatest black, because he's the lowest, dirtiest piece of garbage Nebraska has ever dug up, a rotten coach, a worse husband, and a terrible human who turned an alleged attempted murder in the state into a six-figure salaried head coaching position in another. He's the best the state's black roster has to offer, the definition of Nebraska blackness, arrogant, unaccountable, and thriving on the wreckage he leaves behind. Mickey Joseph stands alone as Black History Month's Nebraska's greatest black, a title he snatched not through valor or victory, but by being the state's loudest, proudest fraud. From his punk days as a racist, scholarship-grabbing student, athlete to his interim coaching debacle, Handed to him by a DI-obsessed athletic director, he's proven he's a talentless hack who rode his race to relevance. Every black in Nebraska and beyond crowned him their king, dreaming of a white free football empire, while the fake news media and dim-witted fans cheered, too scared to call out his stench. He nearly stole the state's top job, only to fumble with incompetence, then cemented his greatness by allegedly strangling his wife and dodging justice with Nebraska's insider scams. Now, coaching again, he's living proof blacks shield their own, no matter the rot. Stupid, phony, and weird, he's not just Nebraska's greatest black. Joseph's a perfect Nebraskan, and also a low-life jerk and stupid fraud who hates whites, cheats life, and thrives on wreckage. He's a black reflection in Nebraska's mirror, Black History Month, Nebraska's greatest black, Mickey Joseph.